Hey Worcester, it's Tracy Novick. We're going back to school this week, although we're not going back into classrooms. Over this weekend, it was the 6-month mark from the last day that Worcester kids actually were in schools. So if it feels like it's been forever, it's been as long as we usually would actually go to school. So about time. I know that it's been exhausting and overwhelming, and I know that teachers in particular have really been scrambling along with their principals these past couple of weeks to really make sure that they're ready. So if you are a parent or a student who is still not entirely clear on what happens on Tuesday, secondary students, your schedules are in the student portal, so you should sign in there, and also make sure that you've accepted all of the invitations from your teachers via email for their Google Classrooms. And elementary school students, I know that their families anyway have been hearing from teachers as well as getting contact from principals. But if you do find that you still have questions about how Tuesday is working, the time to take care of that is tomorrow, Monday. People will be in schools and will be able to answer questions. So please, don't let that go. Don't sit and wonder. Make sure that you're clear on how Tuesday works. And certainly best wishes to everybody as we move forward through this year. That is not exactly what anyone was expecting. I know that people are working very, very hard, and I hope that things go really well, and expect to be hearing from any of you on things that we can be doing on our end to make things work better or be easier. We do, on the school committee side, have some things that have been happening. All 4 of our subcommittees are meeting before our school committee meeting on Thursday. We did have 2 meetings last week. Finance and operations met, had another conversation around the budget cut that we did a couple of weeks ago. 2 things that I think are important there. One is that I'm hearing some intimations from people who are convinced that there's like another round of cuts that are going to happen, or something else is coming. While obviously long term our budget depends on the state budget, which depends on the federal budget, and things aren't looking great there, there's not really something new that's coming over the next couple of weeks. And the cuts were done in a way, as I hope people know, so as to avoid impacting the classroom. So if any of you are kind of lying awake nights, who work directly with kids, or who have those sorts of positions, I know that particularly I've heard from IAs, that isn't something that you should be particularly thinking that is going to happen, or that somehow that we've already done that isn't what happened with those cuts. The other thing that was, though, discussed in that meeting, if you've looked at our executive sessions, you may have seen that we've been in negotiations with the Cafeteria Workers Union, which was last time and this time, and what that was working out was the furlough for the cafeteria workers. Of our 330 cafeteria workers, about 240 of them are being furloughed. Now, furlough means that the position continues to exist, that we intend to call them back once we need their services again, and that as long as they continue to pay their employee side of their health insurance, they'll continue to have it. And that really simply is just a function of us not having the buildings open, which means we're not feeding as many kids, which means we don't need as many people, and it also means that we're not getting as much federal reimbursement. So we had a couple of intimations that might be coming, even as far back as in the spring, and that's what's happening here. So it's sad in many ways, not only, of course, because we don't want to be furloughing people, but also because it honestly is partly a function of us not feeding as many kids, which is really terrible. Please do, by the way, know that the food schedule changes on Tuesday. If you check the website or you check any of our social media, you can find the schedules in multiple languages. It is intended to work around the remote learning schedule, so that you'll pick up food the day before for that day. And it is not only the trucks, but it also is at a bunch of the different schools. So please take a look at that and give us feedback on how well that's working for you. That was finance and operations. My subcommittee, school and student performance, met also on Thursday, and had a hearing on municipal broadband. If you haven't taken a look at the Research Bureau's report on that, I really recommend it. Great way of sort of taking an issue we're all grappling with and saying, how could we do this in a way that would actually improve people's lives? And we passed a couple of measures at the subcommittee level that we'll be recommending out to the full committee, really asking that the city take a very, very serious look at and do the work that would be needed in order to figure out how one would make this work and what it would cost. And then also advocating at the state and federal level for funding for implementation and planning of municipal broadband. So that's coming out of my committee. Governance meets tomorrow. Governance, as you know, probably does policy. We're looking at things like the attendance policy during remote learning and the other aspects of policy that are impacted by the students actually working remotely. And then teaching, learning, and student supports meets on Tuesday, and that is regrounding the conversation on sex ed. DPH had done work on that and has a presentation on that they're coming in with. There also was the community group that had been meeting under the purview of health that had a report that came out as well. And essentially Tuesday's meeting is intended to kind of reground us in that work that had already been done that was always intended to serve as advisories to the school committee. So Tuesday is actually really less about public testimony or comment or those sort of things. It's about saying, okay, so where are we starting from? So that is on Tuesday, and all of those reports then go to our full committee, which meets on Thursday, which will also be the third day of school. So I know that there will be conversations on Thursday about how's school working, what's not working, what do we still need to do, and those sorts of things, as well as the report of the subcommittees. So I think that's most of what you can expect. I also know that athletic practices for the schools, for the sports that are meeting start at the end of this week. So that's another thing to look forward and keep an eye on. And as always, if you have questions, or if there are things that are unclear, or if there are things that we should know about that we're not hearing about, by all means, please get in touch. And to our teachers and to our staff and to our students and to our families, best wishes on the 2020-2021 school year. Really, really hope that it goes well. Got schedules up in my house, and here's hoping the Wi-Fi holds out. Thanks very much.